He's been Mr. Aviation 101 and one of aviation's biggest YouTube stars. We're talking to Josh Flowers in the hangar.
I used to be a well-respected member of the aviation community, and then I started flying to Cirrus, and that changed.
Oh, that was great until the engine quit.
And all of a sudden I see these explosions and these trees exploding.
I'm walking away a better pilot because of this discussion.
Hi, and welcome to In the Hangar. It's our new concept show where we talk aviation with aviation people. And to start it off with, we have Josh Flowers. Josh, thanks for coming up.
Absolutely, I'm happy to be here.
You came a long way to be here in a very hard way.
Yeah, I did. I had a bit of an electrical problem with the airplane that I was bringing up here today, so turned back to the airport, got in the pickup, and drove 3 hours. So,
Well, I appreciate your commitment to come. So you've been Mr. Aviation 101, but the Mr. has now gone away. What's up with that?
well, I feel like over time, the videos have really been going through a lot of changes. And, you know, myself as an aviator, as a person, I've been going through a lot of changes with my technique on filming and everything. And with the way the videos have developed over time, I feel like it was time for the brand, if you want to call it that, to catch up. And it needed a new look. It kind of needed a reboot. So that was kind of my goal with it. The Mr. kind of, I feel it took away from the professionalism and the good, you know, the real clean look of it, so I removed that. Basically, I cover anything and everything that's aviation. If it's aviation, I cover it, so Aviation 101.
Tell me about the whole genesis of Mr. Aviation and now Aviation 101. How did that start? Now, let's go back to the beginning.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So there's two main things here, film and flying. And those are two things that I'm very much so passionate about, probably equally. I bounce back and forth between what's more so. But my parents, for the longest time, for as long as I can remember, they've owned a video business. And they cover live events, weddings, and all that kind of stuff. And I've been around the production process a lot. So that is what got me into the video making aspect of it. I was always around cameras. I had access to cameras. And my dad is a private pilot. So, you know, it's kind of, I want to do what Dad does in that regard, and I want to do what Dad does in that other regard. So that's how I got into those two things, and I just combined them. And when I took my first Discovery flight, I had to film it. You know, I wanted it to be on camera. So that's kind of how the YouTube channel started. Now, obviously, the first video is terrible, you know, looking back on it, but that's how the channel was born, almost accidentally.
And what were you like at the time, 17?
No, I was actually 13.
13, wow.
I was 13.
Well, where did Mr. Aviation 101, where did that name come from?
Because Mr. Aviation was not available. No, so a lot of people ask me, what's the purpose of the 101 part? And we know what 101 is, you know,
Right,
just
beginning, sorry.
this or that 101. So I was in my beginnings of aviation at that time. And I said, well, you know, I want to record my flight training. This is going to cover a lot of the 101 aspects of aviation, so why not call it that? And let's tack a Mr. on, because I'm a guy, right? And over time, that the name just kind of changed to, you know, the channel is no longer about me. It's about aviation, and that's it. That's the reason I make the videos. I don't have to be in the video. And a lot of times that's how it ends up, but you know, it's not about me. It's about aviation and sharing the passion and the love that I have for it. So that's kind of how the YouTube channel came to begin. That's where the name came from. And that's kind of the direction it's moved towards. It's moved away from me and away from my training per se, and moved more towards aviation, what you can do with it and how it can change your life.
Did your following just kind of grow steadily, or was there like one video that dropped that boom, you know, then, you know, tell me about that.
It was very slow and steady. I remember when I passed 1,000 followers, I was like, oh man, this is awesome, this is a big deal, you know, and of course I look back on that now and I'm like, oh wow, that was a long time ago. But it was very slow and steady. I was never fortunate enough to hit the YouTube algorithm right and, you know, have a video totally explode. But there have obviously been successful videos throughout the channel, and sometimes the successful videos are not necessarily my favorite videos. It's just how it works. But over time, that's just, I've had to be really patient with it because it's very slow. And if sometimes you get fortunate with it, or you hit a title just right, or you hit a thumbnail just right, and it's kind of the perfect storm, and you'll get, you know, 60,000 views in 2 hours. And then other times I'm looking at a video and I keep refreshing. I'm like, all right, come on, can you just break 1,000, please, you know? And it's tough. And it's kind of a hurry up and wait game. But for me and my experience with the channel, it was very slow and steady.
All right, so you mentioned that some of the most popular videos aren't necessarily your favorite. What's your favorite video on your channel?
I think there's another man out there by the name of Greg Mink. He has the YouTube channel Premier One Driver. I'm sure a lot of people have seen his videos. Phenomenal pilot, and he's such a nice guy, and he makes great videos. So he came down to Austin one weekend, and he shot me a text, and he said, hey man, I'm in Austin. If you want to do a collaboration, let's do it. I'm going to be doing a photo shoot with the airplane. So I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, let me come film it. So we did. We had a great time, but what he didn't really tell me until I got there was, this is going to be a photo mission in formation with a Bonanza and another Premier. So I said, oh man, this is going to be epic. This is going to be cool. So I'm scrambling, trying to film this as best as I can. Got an interview with him, and it's about a 9-minute video, but the music and the dialogue he gave me, and you can just tell he's so passionate about it. And there was one particular line he said to me in the airplane when the Bonanza was in front of us getting a shot almost straight down our nose, and the sunset was right behind the Bonanza. They were getting the lighting perfect, and Greg just said, there is just something majestic about an airplane cutting through the air in there. And that was like the line that sealed the whole video together. It was perfect. That's my favorite video. It flopped and didn't get as many views as I wanted it to, but that's, you know, sometimes that's how it happens.
Well, of course, you say flop. Your flops to a degree are different than some of us mere mortals. So, Josh, you've got YouTube, but I've also noticed that you've got a Patreon account as well. Yeah. Once you can start actually, you know, making a little bit of money to help, you know, increase your production value and everything else, that's a great thing. So is YouTube really not doing it? You really can't make it, and you have to set up a Patreon? How does that work?
So with the whole Google AdSense thing and the YouTube thing, it's on the contract. We're not allowed to talk about what we make and all that kind of stuff, but it helps with the channel. But the whole idea behind Patreon for me, and like I've always talked about in my videos, you got to do it for the right reasons. The first thing you need to do if you want to have a channel or have a social account or anything like that, you need to have fun with it, and you need to do it because you love it. Right. And that's the reason I do it. So the whole idea behind Patreon is not to make me rich, or it's not to, you know, buy a bigger, badder airplane and all that kind of stuff. It's to simply keep the lights on in the studio, keep new batteries coming into the inventory, keep, you know, replacing cards, replacing cameras, all that stuff. And it helps pay for it. And that's really where it's at right now. Obviously, at some point, I'd like to hire people and have editors for myself and up the production value and whatnot. But right now, that's kind of the business side of it and where it sits.
People watching and looking at your channel may think, well, this is your full-time job, is Aviation 101. Is it, or do you have? How do you?
I'd say Aviation 101 is about half of my full-time thing. Even though workload-wise, it's a full-time gig. Lots of sleepless nights editing, as I'm sure you know. But the other half of the stuff, I love flight instruction. I love it. There's just something about it, sitting next to a student when I see the light bulb come on and they get it and they nail the landing without me touching a thing. It's so cool. I love that. So that's 25% of it, and the other 25% is contract flying. So as a commercial pilot, I don't have a desire to go to the airlines. I just never have. It's not a lifestyle that I really jive with. But corporate flying, Part 91 contract stuff mainly is what I just love. I love doing that stuff. Right now I'm flying a Mooney for somebody, and it's a blast.
Well, you talk about commercial, so let's talk about that for a minute, because you know, as I was, you know, I'm somewhat of still a new pilot, 3 years in, and when I started thinking about, hey, I'm going to put my videos on YouTube, I had somebody comment that, well, you better get a commercial pilot's license, the FAA will come after you, blah, blah, blah. I was close enough, anyway, I was going to get my commercial, and which I did a few months ago, but is it true? Do you have to have a commercial license if you're going to set up a YouTube account that monetizes?
Right. And that's a good question. It's a very loaded question, because as we know, you can ask one FSDO, they're going to say one thing. Ask another FSDO, you know, they're totally separate. But I did talk to a FSDO about this because somebody reported me to the FAA for it. And of course, when somebody calls, you know, they threaten me in a comment on YouTube, and of course I didn't reply or anything, but they did it anyways. And when somebody calls in a complaint to the FAA,
they have to inspect it.
They have to follow up with a phone call. So of course I get a phone call about it, and I'm like, okay, well, while we're on the phone, let's talk about this, because I'm curious. And at the time I already had my commercial certificate, so it was a moot point. But I wanted to know for the sake of others, just like you're asking me now. And basically the way that the inspector and I saw it, and we agreed on this, is that you could take away my pilot certificate, and I'm still going to make the videos, and they're still going to make the money. I have friends I can fly with. I have friends who will let me set cameras up in the airplane. I can sit on the ground and film airplanes taking off and landing, and I'm still going to post videos about it. I get paid to make the videos. I get paid for the post-production process of everything. I don't get paid to get in the airplane and act as pilot in command and exercise my privileges. That's how we both kind of looked at it. So he said, well, you know, you're already commercial, so it doesn't even matter, but you're getting paid for the videos. You're not getting paid to fly. And I said, well, I agree. So that's kind of how I've always seen it. Now, I don't know how the regs are in other countries or how the rules are in other countries. It could be very different. But as far as the FAA goes and as far as really reading into the rules and what privileges are you exercising that are allowing you to make that money, that's none as far as video making goes. So that's how I see it.
So what's the future? You've got the new brand change, Aviation 101. What kind of videos will your fans start seeing?
So I changed the format pretty drastically. Maybe about 8 months ago is when the videos really started to shift. And before, they were all about setting up GoPros in the airplane. This is what we're doing on this flight. Enjoy it, you know.
Right.
And it's like a 15-minute video of just kind of cut up pieces of the flight. But I had a friend who he messaged me after watching one of my longer kind of real mechanical technical videos, and he said, "Hey man, when I read a magazine in the middle of your video, you need a format change." And he's a professional cinematographer, so I trust his opinion. I said, "Well, let's talk about this. Give me a call." So we talked, and he said, "You know, you really need to storyboard things, and I can tell you love it. I want to see that. I want to see that you really love it." And I said, well, that's a really interesting concept. In the very next video, I flew with one of my buddies in a premiere, and he let me film it. We were empty on that leg and everything, so I set up cameras and we filmed it. And I said, well, hey, can I get an interview from you and just tell me your story? Tell me your aviation story, and let's see what we can make. And I made this, in my opinion, a beautiful like 9-minute video, kind of a documentary of his aviation love story. And I showed it to several people, and I showed it to him, and he cried, you know. And then my buddy who I talked to about the format change, he said, you nailed it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I can see you in that video, even though I wasn't even in it.
Right.
You know, he said, I can tell that's your work, and I can tell that's coming straight from your heart, and that's the direction I want to go with the videos. It's anything and everything in aviation. I love it. So I want to cover it how my eyes see it. You know, I can watch a B-17 taking off, and I'm hearing a soundtrack, and here come the anamorphic bars and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great, and I want to share that with people. And it's tough sometimes. I hit a block, right? You know, maybe I need to hear the right piece of music, but that's the direction I want to go with the YouTube channel. I want to show them what my eyes see, what my mind sees when I get inspired by these things in aviation, and kind of attack it from a cinematic standpoint.
Well, Josh, thanks for taking time
Absolutely.
to come up and chat with us, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
For you guys watching, feel free to share, subscribe, and leave comments, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Absolutely.